All right, what's up, YouTubers? So, excuse me. I'm taking the time to post this video because I've seen a lot of stuff on Facebook from people I know, people I don't know, and this video, before I get started and get into the crux of the video and what it's all about, I will say now that this video is not meant to offend anyone who happens to be a men's rights activist or a feminist. This video purely is just to give, I guess, people that don't really have a view, sitting in the middle, sitting on the fence, give them an opportunity to actually have some input. And this is just a culmination of reading and watching news shows and bulletins, shows like Sunrise, The Project here in Australia. So for those of you in the rest of the world, I am from Australia, currently streaming this live from Australia. And this doesn't apply purely to Australia. This applies to most of the world. And just so everyone is aware, again, I also have done research on everything I'm talking about tonight. So everything I'm talking about comes purely based on fact, and also some of my own opinion. So really what this video is about tonight is to do with how feminism and men's rights activism is sort of, I wouldn't use the word polluting because that's probably it's probably a bit of a rude word to use. I would use the word warped or warping. So how these both sides are warping society and society's views, and also how the media is also, probably more so than both sides, is warping this whole subject, and how it's affecting the lives of people in general. So I guess where I'll start is this whole notion that um, is that women are treated unfairly compared to men, but then also that men are victims of a lot. Now, my whole issue with the subject, and again, this is based on fact, this is based on research. My whole issue on this is that feminists spend all their time saying, gender pay gap, equal rights, um, and those are the 2 points that they hammer home quite frequently. And then, of course, men's rights activists talk about parental rights. That's one of their major talking points most of the time. Um, and at the end of the day, we can, I can tell you right now, based on fact, that gender pay gap and equality for women um, are subjects that, again, based on fact, can't be proven as being a real thing. There's no such thing as a gender pay gap. Feminists would have you believe that there is a difference between a woman and a man and how much they get paid for doing the exact same job. And if you look at the facts that these feminists put out there about the gender pay gap and about the fact that a male and a female get paid differently for the same job, that statement alone, without any facts attached, that statement alone is true. Now, if you want to add facts to the matter, this is where the statement becomes slightly warped. And this is how they have warped society into thinking that there is this huge big gap in gender pay. So, if you look at, I don't know, let's use for instance a lawyer. If you look at the average pay rate for a lawyer, male or female, and I'll use Australia as an example because it's an easy place to start. So, the equal pay the actual pay rate for a lawyer in Australia, male or female, is exactly the same. The pay rate per hour, the hourly wage, hourly rate, whatever you want to call it, is exactly the same for male lawyers as it is for female lawyers. However, the reason why female lawyers predominantly, and this is only based on averages, okay, this is not every single example, because there will be examples that differ from this. This is just an average taken based on all of the compiled data. Now, what the compiled data tells us is that, yes, on average, female lawyers get paid less than male lawyers on a yearly basis. Now, the reason why that is the case is because of choices. Choices that are made by male or female lawyers. Now, obviously, females are, I wouldn't say, for lack of a better word, I guess a little bit handicapped in this situation because women get pregnant and have children, which therefore means they cannot work as many hours as men, which therefore means they get paid less on a yearly basis. Now, if that's what you want to describe as a gender pay gap, fine. There is a gender pay gap, but it's based on choices. It's not based on the fact that the employer has decided, oh, we're going to pay a female less than a male. No, they pay exactly the same rate. The issue is that when females obviously get pregnant and have children, they can't go to work. At least, for the first short while of a child's life. So what that means is that, yes, a woman's salary will be less than a man's. Simple as that. Now, the reason why I started with this particular subject is because on the news, there's been a few situations and times where I have watched, they have all these supposed professional commentators come onto TV and try and hammer into your head by trying to use facts that are distorted to suit their story about the fact that, there is a gender pay gap. One example, there was a lady who was on an Australian TV show. She was a media commentator. Obviously she's a feminist, and her whole column and her whole life is sort of based around feminism. And she said, and this is an exact quote, this is not being paraphrased or added, or, I'm not a media outlet, so this is not propaganda. Her words exactly were, why can't a childcare worker be paid the same as a boilermaker? Now, I sort of feel stupid for even having to explain why, but for those of you who don't obviously understand it and realize, she's basically saying that someone that goes to work as a job and looks after children from, let's say, some child workers will do the day shift, so they'll start early in the morning at maybe 7 or 8 a.m., and they might finish at 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and then you have your afternoon stuff. She's trying to compare that job to a job of a person who has to go to work and basically weld two pieces of metal together. Because essentially that's what a boilermaker does. They weld metal together. They put metal together by welding. And she is trying to compare that job, childcare worker, to a boilermaker. And that's her way of explaining what a gender pay gap is. Now, if there's anyone that watches this video and thinks to themselves that, yes, they should get paid the same, well, I'm sorry, but you need to fucking go to another planet, because that's fucking ridiculous. A boilermaker is a dangerous job. You're working with thousands of degrees of heat, which at any moment, even though you might have gloves on and you might have the protective masks, but at any moment, that can cause serious injury. So there is an element of danger pay in what a boilermaker gets. And so this lady, that was her excuse. She pulled out figures from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, which said, the average wage for a childcare worker was something like $22.10 or something like that, something in the low 20s. And then she pulled up the Boilermakers, Boilermakers hourly rate, and it was up near the $28 mark. So there's about $6 different per hour. And she was saying that this is a gender pay gap. Just no. Just no, lady. I'm sorry, but you're fucked. You're a fucking idiot. Like, if that's your job as a media commentator, and that's the best statistic you can come up with, seriously, you need to find a new fucking job. You need to find a new line of work, because that is the stupidest fucking statistic I've ever seen in my life, or even heard of. It's fucking ridiculous. If you look at childcare workers, for example, a male childcare worker gets exactly the same hourly rate as a female child worker. Okay, there's no gender pay gap there. At all. It's exactly the same hourly rate. The only thing that differs is the choices that are made. So a female gets pregnant, she can no longer work as many hours, which therefore means that she'll get paid less per year. Simple as that. The other thing about the gender pay gap is, as this guys, and it's pretty simple. If you look at the statistics around the world, and this is not just in Australia, this is around the world, you look at the statistics, and statistically speaking, females are more likely to take lower paying jobs than men. And what I mean by that is you'll find more women being teachers, nurses, than you will find men. And unfortunately, and this is not based on gender, this is just a fact, that nurses and teachers get paid less than some other jobs. Now, I'm not saying that women can't do other jobs. I'm simply saying, as an average, as a statistically speaking, females take lower paying jobs. That's a choice. That is a choice that is made by women to take those different jobs. Which means, yes, they will be getting paid less than some men. There are some women who take higher paying jobs and get paid higher than men. But you don't see men whinging about it. You don't see men's rights activists running around saying, oh, there's a gender pay gap. No, you only see feminists talking about gender pay gap. I myself have worked in jobs where my boss is female, and I have no problem with it. If you are skilled and you have the experience and you have the qualifications to do a job, you should do that job, and you will be paid accordingly. If you are the boss, you will get paid more money. That's literally how it works. And so they should, because their job is harder than the general population of your staff who would just come into work from 9 to 5 and clock out. So as far as I'm concerned, there is no such thing as a gender pay gap. Now, as I mentioned before, this is based on averages. So there will be occasions, there will be slight occasions where a female may get paid slightly less than a male. Now, these occasions, however, are very few and far between, and generally speaking, these occasions are in industries like sport. I'll use sport as an example. Okay, now, it doesn't really matter what country you're in, okay? Your national soccer team, or football if you're in Europe, your national football team, your men's representatives will get paid higher than the female representatives. Even though they both represent your country, the males get paid more, the females get paid less. Now, while this is an example of a gender pay gap, there is an actual reason behind why there is a gender pay gap in sport, and particularly with football. The reason being is that with women's football, the advertising is not as much, the ticket sales are nowhere near as high, hardly any people watch it, so therefore there's less money to be paid to the players. You can't just make money appear out of nowhere. When you go to a male football game, 9 times out of 10, if it's a big event, the stadium will be sold out. If you go to a men's World Cup final, that stadium is sold out. You go to a women's World Cup final, you will still find thousands of seats empty. Now, that's not the fault of men. It's not the fault of the male footballers or the males in charge of football. It is the fault of us, the general population, people. We don't go and watch that event. We don't go and watch it, so therefore there's not enough money to pay the players more money. It's as simple as that. Okay, it literally is as simple as that. So that is how you can change that example of a gender pay gap and actually explain it by using simple statistics. I've been involved in football most of my life. Okay, I know when I refereed, I used to get paid more than the women referees. Because generally speaking, we would do higher level matches. There's more people, there's more match fees involved, which means we get paid more. The women generally would do the women's games. Sometimes they would do men's games with us as well, and they would get paid the same as an official on the same level. So an assistant referee on the sideline, if it's a female or a male, gets paid the exact same amount on a men's game. On a female game, the men get paid less, and so do the women. They get paid both the same amount, but it's just less than a men's game. And that's fine, because that's just how it works. The match fees are less. There's less there's less crowds, which means less money going through clubs, which means less money to pay the officials, and that's fine. That's how it works. These examples, you can't use these as examples of a gender pay gap. And if you look at any big companies, banks, entertainment industries, pubs and clubs, if you look at their salaries, female salaries and male salaries are pretty much exactly the same. The only time it's not is when there is a choice being made. So, if a female decides to have a child or works less hours than a man, they get paid less. You can't whinge about that and say it's a fucking gender pay gap, because it's fucking not. Okay, it's just fucking not. 100%. It's quite simple to prove that by using statistics. So that's the whole gender pay gap out of the way, because it's a simple concept that is just untrue. So it's not a concept that should be spoken about or talked about, because it's not a thing. It's not real. It's bullshit. It's made up. It's propaganda from the media trying to convince everybody that they should jump on board this whole gender pay gap fucking train and try and get everybody on board. No. No fucking train. No on board. It's not a fucking thing. So cut the shit. It's fucking bullshit. Okay, and I'm sick of hearing about it. Because it's just not a thing. And people were going to comment on this and they're going to put down statistics about... I don't fucking care about your statistics. Because your statistics are biased. Statistics, in a situation when you're talking about a gender pay gap, statistics should be average. You can't use specific examples to then say there is a gender pay gap. Because on average, there is not. Simple as that. And I explained some examples of when it does occur. And they are not examples of proving there's a gender pay gap. They're an example of proving that people make choices. Employers do not pay different rates. Done. End of the deal. The next subject I want to talk about, and this is going to be a very touchy subject. And before I talk about the subject, I would just like to tell everybody that I am not a fan of this subject. It is not something I condone, nor do I encourage, nor do I think it's funny when people joke about it. I think it's disgusting, I think it's sick, and there is a definite need to quash any of that sort of bullshit from happening. And of course, I'm talking about rape, sexual assault, and domestic violence. Those, I'll throw them in together and we'll talk about them separately, but I'm going to put them into the same conversation. So, what we're talking about here... Sorry, I'm just going to light a cigarette. Now, what we're talking about here is the fact that statistically, you will find feminists saying that statistically, there are far more women being raped and abused and victims of domestic violence than there are men. Now, the reason why they only throw that stat out to you and nothing else is because they want you to be on the side of it being a huge issue and that it needs to be dealt with. They don't throw out statistics like the male suicide rate is, 5 times higher than women, or that the fact that males also get abused, males also get raped. You never hear them talking about that because that doesn't pay to their story. That doesn't pay to their timeline. It doesn't work in their narrative. Okay, now as I said, I am not pro-rape. It's the most one of the most heinous crimes I think anyone can commit. Nor do I condone beating women. But what makes it worse is when the media is trying to turn this into a culture, and this country, Australia, is one of the worst for it. They're trying to turn the culture against men. Now, if anybody in Australia watches The Project, you will find that Lisa Wilkinson, the old co-host of Sunrise, sorry, the old co-host of the Good Morning Show on Channel 9 with Carl Stefanovic, she went over to The Project. Now, recently in the last 12 months, there's been a few occasions where she's gone on TV and spoken about this particular subject. And sorry, this just really annoys me, the subject. So what she spoke about in one particular story was there was a lady who was unfortunately, she was sexually assaulted, raped, battered, and she ended up losing her life. Now, as I said before, that is just disgusting. It should never happen, nor should ever be involved, and no one should ever be involved in it. But when you take a story like that, you put it onto mainstream media, like on The Project, and Lisa Wilkinson sits there, has a little speech about, how it's not fair that every time a woman is bashed or is raped, the police go onto the news and they say things like people have to take care of their own safety, and women need to not be alone at night time in parks, and they shouldn't walk alone, shouldn't walk home alone at night, etc. And she says no, that's not the case. She said we need to change the behavior of men. And this is what feminists do. They play the blame game and they put the blame on men. Now, obviously, it was a man in this particular scenario who committed the crime. That I'm not disputing. What I'm disputing is how we suddenly turn it into, because she didn't say that it was that man's fault. She did not blame just that man. She said we need to change the behavior of men, which means she is saying that as a blanket for all men. She's saying all men's behavior need to be changed. And she actually said, and I quote, she turned to her co-hosts, two of them who are men, and she said, you need to tell your friends that it's not okay to rape. Now, just let that sink in for a second. Just let that notion sink in for a second that a seasoned media presenter turns to co-hosts who are male and says to them in her own words, you need to tell your friends it's not okay to rape. Now, what she's doing there is she is basically, without saying it, putting her co-hosts into a bracket of, you need to spread the word that rape's not okay. As if to say that they're part of, some male conspiracy to rape, or that all males are pro-rape. And I'm sorry, but I'm not going to tell my fucking friends not to rape, because I'm not friends with rapists. I'm not going to go and tell my best friend, who I've known for so many years, hey bro, don't rape next week. What a fucking stupid thing to say. Literally, what a fucking stupid thing to say. She's basically saying, me as a dad, if I had a son, that I should be telling my son, hey, when you grow up, don't rape. What a fucking stupid thing to say. Okay, you can't tell a whole population, 4 something billion men, sorry guys, don't rape. What about, hey, sorry men that, you can't see your children because your ex is a total bitch, but, you know, don't sit there and whinge about it. But then you want to get on national TV and say that all men need to tell their friends not to rape. I'm sorry, but I fucking hate that. That's bullshit. If you have a friend, you need to tell them don't rape. That person shouldn't be your friend. It's fucking bullshit. Okay, absolute bullshit. I'm not okay with this notion that all men are evil. And people are going to sit there and comment and say, "Oh, she didn't say all men were evil." No, no, she may not have used those words, but that's what we call an implication. By saying what she said, she has implied that men are rapists. Because by not just blaming that one man who committed the actual crime, she has told all men that we need to change our behaviour. Now, I in my lifetime have never hit, beaten, sexually assaulted, or raped a woman in my life. And it's not something I intend on ever doing because I was raised correctly. So I myself am insulted that she thinks I need to be told not to rape. And that all males need to be told not to rape. Now, I have female friends who have been raped and have been abused. Okay, and those men have paid for their crimes and will continue to for a very long time. And that's exactly where they should stay. But to live with the notion that all men are evil, chauvinist pigs, that's not fair, and it's untrue. Now, I'm not going to go into too much more about feminism and men's rights activism because there's so many facets to it. This video is basically just to say to people, look, instead of fighting each other, feminists and men's rights activists, how about we actually get together and we come up with ways of making the world safer and a better place? If they focus that much energy on that debate as opposed to debating each other about these topics that I've spoken about and others, my God, we wouldn't have half this stuff happening. But instead, they're too busy slinging mud at each other, trying to come out on top with their statistics, which are so biased, instead of sitting down as a group, as a population, as a world, and fucking figuring it out. It's not that hard. It's not that hard. Okay? That's really all I've got to say. Alright, so please guys, like, comment, subscribe. This is the first video for me, so it's something I'm passionate about and something that's important to the world and to me. So I hope this has struck a chord with anyone. If anyone wants to message me or whatever, feel free. My Instagram is @KiwiSinger. Or like I said, you can like, subscribe, put comments. That's fine with me. Yeah, just please everyone, just love each other and let's work together to make this world a better place. Alright. Good night, guys.